So I wanted to start today with a story. Now, 2 weeks ago, I went to this party, and I really wanted to take something with me. So I went to this chocolate shop. I really wanted to take some chocolates to this party. And you know those chocolate shops where you get those boxes of pre-made chocolates. And so I went in and I was like, look, I really, really want a box of chocolates, but I like chocolates with nuts in them. Anything with hazelnut, peanut, you give it to me and I'll eat it. Now, the gentleman was like, I have the perfect box for you. He goes away, and then he comes back, and he has this beautiful box all wrapped up, and he's like, this is the perfect box for you. It has chocolate with hazelnut. So I said, great. I'm going to buy this box, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to take it to this party. We go to the party, open up the box. I take out a piece of chocolate, put it in my mouth. Is it chocolate with hazelnut? It's chocolate with cherry. Imagine the disappointment. I mean, who wouldn't be disappointed? Who likes chocolate with cherry? Nobody. No, really? Oh, wow. You're the only one. So imagine that, right? And obviously, you can see that that is a horrible experience for me. I wanted something, I was promised something, and yet that promise was not delivered. And we know that that experience is unacceptable in person, and yet why do we see that all the time online, right? We'll search something on Google, we'll get an ad, or we'll get a listing, we'll click on it, we get to the page, bam, it's something completely different. And so today I really want to, I don't have my clicker. Oh. This? Cool. Oh, I've messed it up. Big green button. There we go. So the reason I was talking to you about chocolates is I really wanted to just make this into a quote to say landing pages are like a box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get, right? It's going to be chocolate with cherry, it's going to be chocolate with orange, it's going to be chocolate with nuts. You have no idea. And so that user experience for me is just unacceptable. And us as marketers and in the digital space, we look at lots of different numbers, right? One of the big numbers, if you're in kind of the PPC world, you're looking at cost per acquisition. And we all know cost per acquisition is spend over conversions. And today, I really want to focus on that second KPI, conversions. Because if we spend a little bit more time thinking about that, then our marketing campaigns can become better and better and better. And so how do we do that? We do that with conversion rate optimization. Now, I'm sure you guys all know what conversion rate optimization is, and yet when I talk to people, it's always like, oh, so you're the one who changes the button color from red to blue, and I'm like, that is not what I do. So conversion rate optimization, or A/B testing, or multivariate testing, experimentation, is not just changing a color. It's not just changing an image. It's actually about trying to understand the user, trying to really get into their shoes to make it easier for them to convert, to make it easier for them to fulfill their need, to fulfill their goal. Because then at the end of the day, if they fulfill their goal, then as a business, we can fulfill ours. So CRO generally looks kind of like this. You'll see many different iterations of it, but these are the main steps that people go through, right? So you'll have data and research. You're looking at your web analytics data. You're looking at qualitative data. You're looking at voice of customer. You're looking at reviews. You're looking at the entire user picture. What is it that I can get from my users, whether that's behavioral data, whether that's voice of customer, to be able to understand what they need, what they want, and where are they falling? Where are the points where there is friction? Once you know that, then you can move into evidence-based design, right? Do you have evidence? You know the data. The data says, this is not working. OK, how do we fix it? So you start to make these different prototypes. And again, not red to blue, but how do we make that journey better? How do we make that experience better for the user? And once you have that, and you have version A and you have version B, you test that. You experiment with that, right? Because we have so many clients that come to us and say, look, I know this is going to work. We don't need to test it. Just put it into production, put it live. And you really never know what's going to work, right? You need to be able to test it so that statistically, significantly, you can say, yes, this did well or not compared to my business as usual. And then finally, to finish that circle off, it's results and analysis. So once you've done the test, you can then move around and say, did it do well, did it not do well, and what did I learn about my customer? That is the most important part. What did I learn, and how can I make that experience even better, and move into this iterative, cyclical process. So that's CRO in a nutshell. And so the one thing that I wanted to start with, especially when you start with data, is to understand that we are not the user, right? And again, if I say, oh, I like the site, but I think that we need this particular information there, do you? Do you really know that? And the only way you know that is to be able to understand your user. So first and foremost, we have to step out of our own shoes and step into the shoes of their user. Because once we do that, and once we start to understand who it is that's actually coming to our site, that's when we get to know and get to relevance. And relevance can be split up into many different ways. I want to split up relevance today into 3 different parts. Getting the right message to the right person at the right time. It's as simple as that, right? Trying to become more and more relevant for the person, for the user, so that they can then continue on with whatever they need to do. So I'm going to give you a few practical examples that I hope that you can take away and actually put into practice really easily. The first one is hitting on getting the right message. We're just going to get one of those 3 things in relevance. So symmetrical messaging. So we have one of our clients who is a housekeeping service in London. And so people do lots of searching to say, oh, I want someone to come and clean my house in London. And so they'll be shown this ad, for example, and it says housekeep cleaning services in London. Cool. Someone else will search cleaning services in Leeds or Birmingham or Manchester, whichever city. And they get this ad, and then they all get sent to this particular landing page. Now, when we looked at the data, this particular geo-targeted ad campaign was doing way, way, way worse than everything else. We were getting so much click-through, lots of people coming, lots of traffic, and yet the bounce rate was so high, and obviously then the conversion rates were even lower. So what is the problem here? And so we looked at that data and we said, okay, there must be a problem here. Something is wrong. And so we looked at survey data. And what survey data told us was that they need to know if that person can come and clean their house in their area, right? You don't want someone in Paris flying to London just to vacuum my house. You need someone in your area. So this was something that was so important to the user. So we went into, that was our data, then we went into evidence-based design, and we came up with lots of different versions of what this landing page could look like, and I'm going to show you one of them. And it's literally the most simple thing that we did. All we did was those coming in from London, we dynamically changed the heading to London. Those coming in from any other city, dynamically changing it based on what they clicked on. Not rocket science. Just making it a little bit more relevant, we saw increases of over like 9% in conversion rates. Not even like continuation rates, conversion rates. So making it just that little bit more relevant can give you so much more in terms of conversions. So, takeaway point number 1, make sure you keep your promises. If you promise something on your ad, make sure you keep that promise on your landing page. Use symmetry to be able to align your messages from your ads to your landing page. As simple as that, to make sure you get the right message. We're going to go on to the second example. And before we do, you should all have a small piece of paper under your seats or under someone's seat. If you just check under your seat, you'll see this. I'll give you a few seconds. And there's 2 questions on there. Take a couple seconds to answer that question. No cheating. No phones. We're going to do this old school. And sorry for all of you here who have no hair. I apologize in advance, JP. OK, so for question number 2, on this side, can anyone give me a number? Shout out a number. 150K. OK. Someone on this side, give me a number. 1.2 million. OK. Someone more, again on this side. 42. 42. OK. So 42,000, we're going to say. And anyone else on this side? 750,000. You're on this side. Anyone else on this side? 100? 100,000. OK. So that was a little bit difficult. But here we were getting in the 100,000s. Here we were getting in the million-ish range. Why is that? Exactly. So question number 1 is, on average, are there more or less than 100,000 hair follicles on a human head? And on this side, I tricked you. I said 1 million hair follicles on a human head. So this side, you had 100,000. This side, you had 1 million. So that is a real-life example of anchoring. So anchoring is a cognitive bias. And in psychology, what that means is that our brains are lazy. And our brains really want to become more and more efficient. So they try to make shortcuts. So our brain makes shortcuts so that we can become more and more efficient. And what I did there was I gave you a piece of information. And anchoring basically says humans take that first piece of information and rely so heavily on it to make their decision. So even though we don't know what the actual answer is of this particular question, it's irrelevant. But what we saw is that because I gave you 100,000 and 1 million, your decision to make that answer changed. Now, how do we take that into hair follicles and move that into on-site? So imagine we have another client, and people are searching for broadband deals. Great. You get this, and you say, broadband packages from £20. Amazing. That's a great deal. Click on the ad. Move into the landing page, and what you see is this. So instead of £20, you now see £29. And even though £29 is a great price, I'm like, that is too expensive. You said £20. That is too expensive for me. So we told our client, look, you can't do that. You're anchoring people on the £20, and now, because they have that anchor in their head, that decision-making process changes. So we didn't change the pricing strategy, obviously, because we weren't allowed to do that, but we changed the ads. So we changed the ads to say packages from just £29 a month. Now, obviously, we got less click-through rate, we got less traffic, but with that less amount of traffic, we still got more qualified clicks. They knew what they wanted, they knew what they were getting, and they were converting at a higher rate. So be aware of your anchors. See where you've put your anchors, and that's not only in information, in numbers, it's also information. So we're talking about what are the USPs that you put out there? What is the actual information that you put out there that users are making a decision based on that particular information? So takeaway point number 2, be aware of your anchors, right? Cognitive biases can play a big role in users' decision-making processes. Third example. So we're trying to get now the right message to the right person. That's ticking 2 of the relevance boxes. And we're talking about understanding audiences. Now, we all know that our audiences don't look like this, right? So we know that our audiences are different people who want product X or are not interested, perhaps, their previous purchases, high lifetime value, et cetera, et cetera. And we know that there's all sorts of different groups. We all know that. So what we need to start doing is trying to understand these audiences and understand why they're coming to our site. So one of our other clients, Sigma Sport, they sell bike, triathlon, clothing, nutrition, all sorts of different things. And they have over 100 brands on their site. And the client thought that their audiences were people who are interested in bikes, interested in nutrition, interested in clothing. And yet when we looked at the data, we looked into their Google Analytics, and we looked into their CRM, what we found was that it's not people who just want bikes. People who bought a bike from a particular brand, so a Castelli brand bike, they would then come back and buy the helmet, they would buy the jacket, they would buy the shoes, they would buy the entire kit. So they're not interested in a particular category, they have a brand affinity. So now that we know that, instead of sending them to this generic landing page again, now that we know that they have a favorite brand, they want to come back and buy from that favorite brand, making sure that these pages, even if it's not the landing page, even if it's the creatives that you're putting on there, giving the user what they need. So for users who had an affinity to a specialized brand, we gave them specialized. For those who were interested in Castelli, we gave them Castelli. It's just about being relevant and making it easier for users to get to where they need to get to. And just by doing this, and this is, again, a simple example, we increased conversion rates by 32%. And this is all statistically significant. We're talking about 99% statistical significance, huge increases in conversion rates just by making it a little bit more relevant to the user. So takeaway point number 3, know who you're talking to. It's really important to take the time to understand your audiences to become more and more relevant. And last and final example is trying to hit all 3 points, getting to the right message, to the right person at the right time. And that's now knowing your audiences and understanding who they are, and yet knowing where they are in their customer journey as well. So all of these things are very important. And we all know the customer journey could look like this, but actually they go up, down, back and forth, round and round, right? Customers don't really follow this path. So when you know your audience is at a particular stage in that customer journey, think about what type of content they would want to see. So imagine people in the awareness stage. What do they need from you to be able to move on and actually trust your brand? So think about discovery content. What information do they need? Do they need to know your products? Do they need to know your brand? What is it that they need to know for them to be able to move from awareness into consideration? When they're in that consideration phase, what information do they need? Do they need social proof? Do they need reviews? Do they need pricing? Do they need specs? Do they need features? What do they need at that moment to make that decision, to actually put something into their basket? And once they actually have put something into their basket, then think about conversion content. What do they need at that conversion point to say, yes, I'm going to actually purchase from you? What is it? Is it trust? Is it credibility? Is it testimonials? Is it reviews? What do they need at that point to make that decision? Because people across this journey don't need the same things. Necessities are different at different points in their journey. And so we've done testing across the entire customer journey, and we're seeing increases of 10, 12% in that entire journey getting people through. So keep in mind that the customer journey is obviously very important. So takeaway point number 4 for me is remember that this is an ongoing conversation. Be relevant during your entire customer journey. It is so important to keep relevance in that entire conversation. So now you're thinking, okay, Shahina, you're making me do data, you're making me do testing, you're making me get an A/B testing platform. Is it really worth it? Well, I don't know. Let's cheat. Let's see. How much could on-site optimization actually be worth? So let's think about potentially a campaign that you may have, and you have 20,000 pounds or dollars in spend. And that brings in 50,000 visitors. Great. So let's say business as usual, your normal conversion rate sits at 2%. Great. Now, what if we increase that 2% by just 1? What if we move it up to 3%? We just move that dial a little bit higher. Then what? Then, if we do that simple math, we're looking at 1,000 conversions for business as usual. But with our optimized site, we're looking at 1,500 conversions. Then imagine if our product is about 100 pounds, right? Again, simple math, we're looking at 100,000 in revenue. But with that increase, we're looking at 1,500. No, 150,000. Can't count. And then cost per acquisition, 20 pounds if we do the math. And if you go up, we're looking at 13. So a huge decrease in cost per acquisition just by increasing our conversion rate or spending some time on optimization. And then at the end of the day, when we're looking at that big ROAS number, we're looking at 5 for every dollar you spend, and 7.5. So we're getting a lot more in return by just doing a little bit more optimization. So yes, it is worth it, and do spend the time doing this because it's so important for us to be more relevant, to be able to give users, give customers what they want so that they can fulfill their needs. And so when you're thinking about doing optimization, be relevant so that you're able to convert once you capture. Thank you.
That was brilliant.
Thank you.
And we've got a little bit of time for questions. What I took away from that is maybe the race to drive traffic is not necessarily over, but it's definitely less important. It's now a race to make the most of what we get.
Exactly, exactly. And I think if we look at the big brands, they're all doing testing and they're all doing optimization because it's so important to be more and more relevant. That's why people go back to these big brands, because they know they're going to get a good experience, and that's what people want.
Yeah. So has anybody got any questions? Dixon has a question. Hold on. I remembered your name this time.
So good of you, Jason. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
So we've recently been doing some stuff, and we've been asking our customers, and we've worked out that we went down a wrong out. It's kind of a new business, so it was bound to happen. Fortunately, we heard from someone like you that we should ask our customers this time. And we've changed our approach, and I think we've got a much better approach. The problem is that since we've changed things at the start of their customer journey, at some point they're going to get to the other stuff that was all there, and so you've changed a bit. So do you find, I guess my question is, do you find that if you do change that customer journey at the start, it can have very expensive repercussions on trying to manage your lifetime value of a client afterwards?
Yeah, definitely. And but that's the thing with optimization. It's not a project. It's a program, right? And that is something that you do for the top of the funnel, and then you have to continue optimizing, or else you're right. You're going to spend a lot of money doing this, and then they're going to get to a point where it was the old site, and then they're going to drop off again. So yes, you'll get more numbers. Yes, you'll get more traffic to that point. So yes, you may get a lot more conversions, yet the rate will remain the same. So we need to be able to understand how to continue that program into the entire customer journey.
Yeah, okay. And you were saying for the town names, for the prices.
Yes.
How important do you find just the wording? I've clicked on an ad with a specific word and I don't see that specific word. I'm unhappy, or is that a very minor point?
I think it's minor. I don't think it's the exact wording. I think it's what is it that they're looking for. So if the exact heading doesn't have to be the same, but the relevance has to be there.
Okay, I was under the impression that as human beings, we get triggered by what we've actually said.
We do, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. I wouldn't say that. Because we've done testing where we did exactly the same copy on the landing page, and it's failed.
Oh, okay, brilliant stuff. So
failing is still good.
Well, my takeaway from that as well, once again, I keep saying it, we're SEOs maybe, but maybe we can start moving more into marketing in the wider sense and start advising our clients about this kind of stuff and saying, well, maybe with the same traffic we can make more money straight off the bat. Widen our horizons.
Widen your horizons.
Has anyone else got a question, or I'll just keep going on about marketing again? No, brilliant stuff. Thank you, Shahina. That was absolutely wonderful. Big round of applause.